I recently came across this video by the BBC explaining why consciousness evolved. I want to give my reaction to it because I found that I have a couple of disagreements with it.
Your mind passes from experience to experience, from the unique taste of your favourite food to a cherished childhood memory, to that sudden fear that you may have left the stove on. This ebb and flow of thoughts and feelings is often described as our stream of consciousness, and in the past, this experience was believed to be uniquely human. However, over the past few years, ingenious experiments have provided compelling evidence that many animals do have a conscious experience.
So right off the bat, I don't really know what they mean by conscious experience. Because if they mean consciousness as philosophy usually defines it, and how the word is ordinarily used, there's no way for its existence to be proven by experiments.
Some species, including certain species of apes, crows and cuttlefish, even seem capable of quite complex thought processes, such as planning for the future. A cuttlefish, for example, will eat less shrimp if it expects to find a tastier crab later on.
There's no outward behavior from an organism that can be used as evidence for a conscious experience within. The narrator says that some animals are even capable of quite complex thought processes, as if the complexity were a sign of their consciousness. If consciousness is required for complex tasks, we must assume computers are already conscious, given that they perform some tasks much better than any human or animal can. The relationship between informational processing and consciousness is still largely a mystery. Why, for instance, is the activity of the cerebellum happening entirely in the dark, while other brain regions, though far less active, are nonetheless conscious?
Helps animals to respond to changing environments and to explore new territories. And this helps explain why consciousness evolved, because, according to Jablonka and Ginsberg, unlimited associative learning is only possible if you possess all the abilities associated with consciousness. Abilities such as feeling rudimentary emotions like reward and pain, paying attention to particular sensory stimuli while ignoring others.
So the video argues that consciousness may have provided an evolutionary advantage over other species, and that is the reason why it evolved. But again, as we've established before, complex tasks, planning ahead, and cooperating with other individuals need not be happening consciously. It's an easy assumption to make because we do these things consciously, but that shouldn't lead to the conclusion that consciousness is required. One could easily imagine an unconscious organism that natural selection develops into an ever more complex animal that has all the necessary abilities to find food, escape from predators, and create offspring. It's nowhere written that it's impossible to create a creature as intelligent as a human being without there being a conscious observer within.
To particular sensory stimuli while ignoring others, and having a basic sense of self.
This is another point of confusion. Many people seem to equate self-awareness with consciousness. They think that only an animal who recognizes itself in the mirror is conscious. But for one to be aware of oneself, one has to be aware in the first place. In other words, conscious awareness is a prerequisite for self-awareness, and it's totally possible to be conscious while losing this sense of self. For example, if you are in a flow state or in deep meditation.
It is also possible to trace back through the evolutionary tree to guess which of our ancestors first evolved this ability, and therefore when consciousness first evolved on Earth. Once consciousness had emerged, the capacity for more complex behaviours created an arms race between competing species. Predators would have been better at finding prey, which would have meant that the animals on the bottom of the food chain, in turn, needed to evolve ways to avoid detection. This arms race helped drive the Cambrian explosion, the explosion of new species around 500 million years ago, sometimes described as evolution's Big Bang moment.
Is it really the case that there must be a survival value to consciousness? It's totally possible for consciousness to be an evolutionary byproduct. Like, for instance, the whiteness of our bones is neither an advantage nor disadvantage, but it's simply an inevitable side effect of selecting for bone made of calcium. Maybe consciousness is just a byproduct of brain processing, but not in itself doing anything.